poor waitress texted the CEO by mistake, asking for money to buy baby formula. Clara Jensen stared at her cracked phone screen, fingers shaking as she quickly typed a desperate message. Sarah, I'm really sorry to bother you again, but could I borrow $30 for Lily's formula? Payday is Friday. I promise I'll pay you back. She hesitated only a second before pressing send, then slumped onto her worn, threadbare couch, utterly drained. Before we move further, please ensure to like, share, and subscribe for heartwarming stories like this. The baby monitor crackled softly beside her, transmitting her 6-month-old daughter Lily's quiet, uneven breathing. Clara glanced wearily at her banking app, a stark reminder of her grim reality. Just $3.15 left, far too little to buy more formula. Her stomach twisted painfully. She had already diluted the last bottle more than she felt comfortable admitting. Shame burned in her chest, overshadowed only by the urgency of her daughter's needs. Miles away, atop the gleaming headquarters of Langston Enterprises, CEO Jonathan Langston felt his phone buzz. Expecting another mundane update about international investments, the 41-year-old executive glanced casually at the notification. Instead, an unfamiliar number and a message that clearly wasn't meant for him caught his attention. His brow furrowed slightly, curiosity peaked as he reread the words. Back in the modest apartment, Clara sat up abruptly, horror washing over her as she noticed the recipient's name displayed on her screen. Her heart raced, her mind spinning with panic. Jonathan Langston, the CEO whose number she'd inadvertently saved months ago while working a catering event, was never intended to see her most vulnerable plea. Oh no, no, Clara whispered shakily, her pulse hammering in her ears. Her eyes darted frantically between the sent message and the unfamiliar yet powerful name. Anxiety consumed her thoughts. Would he think she was attempting a scam, or worse, mock her humiliating desperation? Her palms were clammy as she gripped the phone tighter, nausea rising steadily with each passing second. The crushing realization that she'd exposed her dire circumstances to someone so far removed from her reality made her head spin. The silence was suffocating, Clara's mind spiraling with embarrassment and fear. Then, suddenly, her phone vibrated, startling her. She inhaled sharply, heart pounding. With trembling fingers, she opened the unexpected reply. Clara, this is Jonathan Langston. Is everything all right? Clara stared at the screen in stunned disbelief, unable to move, breathe, or even comprehend the warmth and concern emanating from the message. A surge of cautious hope mingled with lingering uncertainty inside her, hinting that perhaps, just perhaps, this accidental text might change everything. Clara stared at Jonathan Langston's reply, the glowing screen still trembling in her hands. Across the city, in the towering steel and glass heart of Langston Enterprises, the man himself sat in a sleek, high-backed leather chair, surrounded by walls of glass that offered panoramic views of the skyline. The boardroom was filled with murmuring executives discussing projections and market share. Graphs flashed across a wall-sized screen, but Jonathan's attention had drifted. The vibration from his phone had pulled his focus away from the presentation. Curious, he glanced down, expecting the usual flood of emails or another report on the Southeast Asia deal. Instead, the message caught him off guard. Sarah, I'm really sorry to bother you again, but could I borrow $30 for Lily's formula? Payday is Friday. I promise I'll pay you back. He stared at the words, reading them twice, then a third time. His eyebrows knitted together. This wasn't business. This was personal. Clearly not meant for him. He didn't know a Sarah, and the tone was far removed from the clipped, formal language he was used to. A voice pulled him back to the room. Mr. Langston, do you think the projected ROI on the Meridian acquisition? He held up a hand subtly. Excuse me a moment, he said calmly, rising from his seat. Please continue without me. I need to take a call. As he stepped into the hallway, the hum of conversation faded behind the soundproof glass. Jonathan scrolled up, checking the sender's name. Clara Jensen. It didn't ring a bell, though something about it nudged at his memory. He tapped open the message thread and saw no prior exchanges, just that single, urgent text. Something in it struck him. The tone. The name of the baby. Lily. The raw vulnerability in the words. No filters, no pretense. Just need. Sincere, immediate, unpolished need. The kind that doesn't come from someone playing games. He leaned against the wall, staring out the window at the distant city skyline. How had she gotten his number? Was it some mistake? A random fluke? He vaguely remembered a catering event nearly a year ago. An employee had joked that he should mingle more with the wait staff to learn how real people lived. Maybe that was it. He could have deleted the message. He could have ignored it. But something kept him there. This wasn't a business pitch or a scam. It was a mother reaching out with nowhere left to turn. He built an empire on calculated risk and strategic moves, but this wasn't strategy. This was instinct. He typed a reply slowly. Clara, this is Jonathan Langston. Is everything all right? He stared at the blinking cursor for a moment before hitting send. There. Done. Yet his mind didn't move on. He began to wonder who Clara was, what her life looked like outside that desperate text. What kind of day had she just endured? What had pushed her to reach out like that, to someone she clearly hadn't intended? Jonathan had seen desperation before. On spreadsheets, in courtrooms, in markets collapsing under the weight of poor decisions. But this wasn't abstract. This was real. One woman, one child, one choice. And yet, he knew the gravity of his response. A simple acknowledgement could change her life, or wreck it further. That weight settled on him, unfamiliar and sharp. He wasn't a man used to emotion steering his decisions. But this was different. Back in the boardroom, the meeting droned on. Colleagues speculated on mergers, restructuring, global expansions. But Jonathan Langston, self-made billionaire, king of cold calculations, was standing still in a hallway, thinking about a stranger's baby who needed formula. As the seconds ticked by with no reply, he felt something unexpected, anticipation. Maybe even concern. It was irrational, he told himself. Still, he waited. In his office, he sat down and opened her message once again. He copied her name into his internal directory. Nothing. No record of employment, no vendor listing. She wasn't part of his world. Not yet. His fingers hovered over his keyboard. Maybe he should do more. Ask his assistant to find out where she lived? Send an anonymous delivery? Set up a fund? He paused. No. First, he'd wait for her to reply. Give her the space to trust. Minutes passed. The screen stayed quiet. But the gears in Jonathan's mind were already turning. This wasn't the kind of thing you walked away from. Not when a single message could mean the difference between hunger and hope. A message not meant for him had landed in his hands. And in that quiet corner of the office tower, Jonathan Langston began to wonder if it had, in fact, found the exact person it needed to. Clara didn't sleep. The night crawled by in fragments, waking to check her phone, listening for Lily's breathing, and replaying the message over and over in her head. Clara, this is Jonathan Langston. Is everything all right? She'd replied, cautiously, honestly, admitting the message was a mistake, but also, shamefully, confessing it wasn't entirely accidental that she still had his number. She hadn't expected what followed, a second message, polite and unexpected. Come by my office tomorrow at 9. I'd like to talk. Now, standing in the marble-lined lobby of Langston Enterprises, Clara felt wildly out of place. Her coat was secondhand, her shoes scuffed. She held Lily close, the baby's soft coos a fragile comfort in the sleek, quiet space filled with glass walls and people who looked too polished to notice her. The receptionist had taken her name with a slight raise of an eyebrow, but no questions. She sat now on the edge of a leather chair, one hand rocking Lily's carrier, the other clutching the strap of her worn diaper bag like it might anchor her to reality. Each passing second stretched, heavy with uncertainty. Then a door opened. Jonathan Langston stepped out from a hallway with an air of calm confidence, dressed in a tailored navy suit, no tie. His eyes scanned the lobby until they found her. Clara saw the flicker of recognition, the same look from his photo in a financial magazine she'd once skimmed in a waiting room. Except now, it was directed at her. He smiled. Not the stiff, corporate kind, but something warmer. Grounded. Human. Clara Jensen, he said. She stood too quickly, nearly dropping the baby bag. Yes. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to come to reception or... You're exactly where you need to be, he said gently, nodding to the hallway. Come on in. Clara followed him, heart hammering. She walked past glass offices, glimpsing executives in quiet meetings, and felt like every step was too loud. Jonathan led her into his office, wide, bright, filled with minimalist decor and framed photos of global outreach projects. It didn't feel cold, just intentional. He motioned to a comfortable chair, and Clara sat, settling Lily in her lap. The baby stirred, but didn't fuss. Jonathan pulled a chair closer rather than sitting behind the desk, the small gesture softening the room's power dynamic. He offered her a bottle of water. She accepted with a shaky, whispered thanks. For a moment, There was only the quiet rustle of Lily's blanket. Jonathan broke the silence. I wanted to meet you because that message, it stayed with me. Clara looked down, embarrassed. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have even kept your number. It was just. I don't know. Something told me not to delete it back then. He nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes, our instincts know more than we do. She risked a glance at him, expecting some trace of pity or judgment. There was none. I've received a lot of messages in my career, he continued, but few that felt that real, that raw. I couldn't ignore it. Clara's voice cracked when she finally replied. I didn't mean to dump my problems on you. There was no one else left to ask. You didn't dump anything, he said gently. You asked for help. That takes more strength than most people realize. Her throat tightened. She blinked rapidly, willing herself not to cry. Jonathan's gaze shifted to Lily, then back to Clara. She's beautiful. Clara gave a faint smile. She's my whole world. I can see that. He leaned back slightly, still focused on her. What's your situation, Clara? Job, support, housing? She hesitated. I work as a waitress. It barely covers rent, and I don't have family nearby. Lily's father left when I was 3 months pregnant. Since then, it's been just us. Jonathan didn't flinch. He just listened. She kept going, almost despite herself. I don't want charity. I want stability. A chance to do better for her. I just didn't expect things to get so hard, so fast. He nodded again, slower this time. Would you be open to working somewhere else? Maybe. Here. Clara blinked. Here? You mean at Langston? I don't mean an executive office, he said with a small grin. But we have programs, community outreach, internal services, even administrative roles. You strike me as someone who works hard. I like hiring people like that. Her voice caught. You do that. He met her eyes. I don't usually invite strangers into my office. But I also don't ignore people who show me who they really are. Clara didn't know what to say. Gratitude tangled with disbelief in her chest. Jonathan stood. Let's take this one step at a time. We'll arrange a meeting with HR. If it works out, we'll find a position that fits. No strings, just a chance. As Clara stood too, Lily stirred and looked up, blinking. The baby's small hand reached out instinctively, and Jonathan, after a slight hesitation, offered his finger. Lily gripped it, and Clara, in that surreal moment, felt the first flicker of something she hadn't felt in months, hope. Clara hadn't expected to open up the way she did. Something about Jonathan's presence disarmed her. The way he listened without interrupting, without glancing at his watch or shifting impatiently. So, with Lily sleeping peacefully in her lap, Clara spoke. She told him everything. About the long shifts at the diner that paid just enough to keep the lights on. About the eviction notice that had come 2 days before payday. About walking 5 blocks to a clinic when Lily developed a fever and she couldn't afford a cab. She confessed how she'd skipped meals to stretch formula. And most of all, how she hated that survival had become a daily negotiation with desperation. Her voice cracked more than once, but she didn't stop. If this was her only chance to be seen, not as a problem, but as a person, she wouldn't waste it. When she finally fell quiet, her face burned with embarrassment. She hadn't meant to unravel like that, to pour her life out on a stranger's floor. But Jonathan didn't look uncomfortable. He didn't shift or avert his gaze. He sat forward, elbows resting on his knees, as if every word she'd said mattered. Thank you for telling me that, he said quietly. You didn't have to, and I know it wasn't easy. Clara managed a small nod, brushing her sleeve against the corner of her eye. I'm sorry if it was too much. This isn't how I wanted anyone to see me. Jonathan's expression softened. It's exactly how I needed to see you. She blinked, unsure if she'd heard correctly. You're not the first person I've met who's faced impossible odds, he continued. But what stands out is how hard you're still fighting. That matters to me. More than a polished resume or boardroom etiquette. Clara didn't respond. She couldn't. Her throat tightened too quickly. I want to offer you a position, he said. She looked up sharply. A position? At Langston Enterprises. We have roles that don't require advanced degrees or 10 years of experience. What they need is reliability, empathy, grit. You've shown me all of that in a single conversation. Her mouth parted in disbelief. Are you serious? I wouldn't say it if I wasn't. But, I don't even know what I could do here. We'll figure that out together, Jonathan said. Maybe it's in our internal communications, maybe in outreach. We also fund multiple nonprofits. If you're more comfortable starting with something part-time or remote, that's on the table, too. Clara sat frozen. Her mind struggled to keep up. A minute ago, she had been explaining why she watered down baby formula. Now, she was being offered a way out of the cycle she'd been trapped in for more than a year. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Don't say anything yet, he said with a small smile. Just hear the rest. He walked to his desk and retrieved a slim envelope, returning to hand it to her. This is to get you through the week. Formula, groceries, anything you and Lily need. It's not a loan. It's not charity. It's a gesture. And it's confidential. Clara stared at the envelope. She didn't need to open it to feel the weight of it. Her fingers trembled. I can't take this, she murmured. Yes, you can, Jonathan replied gently. Because you're going to earn every bit of it through the work you do here. This is just helping you reach the starting line. She pressed the envelope to her chest, as though that might steady her breathing. Tears welled up again, this time, from something unfamiliar, relief. I don't know how to thank you. You already have, Jonathan said. By being honest with me. By trusting me. The room was quiet for a long moment. Clara looked down at Lily, who stirred slightly but didn't wake. Her tiny fingers clutched the edge of the blanket, oblivious to the shift in their future. Clara raised her eyes again. I'll work hard. I won't waste this. I believe you, he said simply. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she believed it too. That moment marked a turning point. Subtle, but irreversible. The beginning of something bigger than either of them could fully understand yet. A path carved not by luck, but by empathy, choice, and an accidental message that found the right hands. Clara stood in front of the mirror in the break room, adjusting the lanyard with her new employee badge. Her name looked official now, Clara Jensen, Community Relations Associate. She ran her fingers along the clean edge of her blazer, a gift from HR her first day. It wasn't high fashion, but it fit, and for the first time in ages, so did she. Langston Enterprises was a machine of efficiency and polish. Every hallway hummed with purpose, every conversation carried weight. In her first week, Clara felt like she was navigating a foreign land. Smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes, whispered questions when they thought she wasn't listening. She didn't blame them. The rumor mill had done its job. The single mother who walked in off the street and landed a job because Jonathan Langston said so. Some speculated she was his distant relative. Others were less generous. But Clara came in early, stayed late, and asked questions. She offered help without being asked. She learned names, paid attention. When a frustrated colleague fumbled with scheduling software, Clara stayed behind after hours watching tutorials until she could fix it. One morning, a sticky note appeared on her desk. Thanks for the assist, Rachel. The next week, someone invited her to lunch. By the third month, Clara was fielding calls from nonprofit partners, coordinating events, drafting press briefs. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was contributing. And it showed. She walked taller. Her voice steadied. The fear that once lived in her bones had begun to fade. Her paycheck didn't make her rich, but it made her whole. Formula was stocked in her kitchen. Diapers didn't come with guilt. Lily had a crib, warm pajamas, a bedtime routine. Jonathan had kept his distance at first, deliberate, she suspected. He never hovered, never treated her like a favor he'd granted. But he checked in, discreetly. An occasional email asking how the new team was working out. A quick nod in the hallway. Once, when she successfully negotiated a community grant match, he sent her a simple message. You made a difference today. Thank you. It was enough. Gradually, their interactions deepened. A shared coffee at the machine turned into 10-minute chats. She learned he had grown up in a single-parent home, that he once sold his bike to pay a utility bill during college. He understood things not because he'd read about them, but because he'd lived them. That common ground bred something quiet and genuine. One Friday, he passed her office and noticed Lily's drawing pinned to the corkboard. Crayon flowers, a lopsided sun, and two smiling stick figures, one tall, one short, holding hands. That us? He'd asked with a grin. Clara laughed, cheeks flushing. She says the tall one has boss hair. So, you win. He chuckled. Tell her I'm honored. By then, Clara was no longer a curiosity in the building. She was a presence. She belonged. And she made sure no one forgot how she got there. At lunch one afternoon, a new hire joined her table in the cafeteria, nervously balancing a tray. Sorry, he mumbled. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to sit. Clara scooted her tray and smiled. Right here's just fine. She never forgot the kindness that changed her life. And now, she passed it forward, one conversation, one small gesture at a time. Every evening, she returned home to Lily with stories, small victories, funny emails, even boring meetings that felt like a privilege now. They had routines, rituals. On Wednesdays, it was spaghetti night. On Sundays, they danced in the kitchen. One night, as she tucked Lily into bed, the little girl asked, "Mommy, do you like your new job?" Clara paused, brushing hair from Lily's forehead. "I love it. You know why? Because they have cookies?" Lily grinned. Clara laughed. "Yes, that's part of it. But mostly because I feel brave when I'm there." Lily yawned, already fading into sleep. "You've always been brave." And just like that, Clara realized she wasn't starting over anymore. She was building. This, routine, security, possibility, it was her new beginning. And every morning she walked through the glass doors of Langston Enterprises, Clara Jensen carried more than her badge and her bag. She carried proof that one mistake, one plea sent into the dark, could become the light that turned everything around. For months, Clara Jensen had moved quietly through the halls of Langston Enterprises, earning her place one task, one breakthrough, one late night at a time. Her transformation had been slow but certain, like dawn creeping into a long dark room. But even the brightest morning cast shadows. It started with whispers. She noticed them during a Monday meeting. Two colleagues leaning in, one glancing her way, followed by a curt laugh muffled behind a coffee cup. The conversation shifted the moment she stepped into the conference room. Politeness remained, but the warmth was missing. By Wednesday, she'd overheard her name more than once in corners and corridors. She must have done something to get in that fast. "You really think Langston just happened to get her message? Please." Each phrase stung like a paper cut, invisible to others but sharp to her. Clara knew her story didn't fit the usual blueprint. No Ivy League degree, no fast-tracked internship. But the insinuations cut deeper than she expected. The most vicious came through an anonymous email forwarded to HR. "Your new hire seems awfully close to the CEO. How convenient." She found out during a routine check-in with her manager, who looked uncomfortable even bringing it up. "We don't believe it," he said. "But you should know. It's circulating. And it's distracting the team." Clara left the meeting with her heart in her throat. That night, she sat in her apartment long after Lily had fallen asleep, staring at her phone, wondering if she should quit before she caused more damage. She hadn't asked for the rumors. She hadn't even seen Jonathan outside of work meetings in weeks. But the lie was easier to believe than the truth that a single mom from nowhere had been offered a shot and simply made the most of it. By Thursday, the tension had reached Jonathan's ears. He stood at the head of a company-wide strategy meeting when a comment, a barbed joke laced with smug sarcasm, drifted across the table. "Maybe Clara should review the next partnership proposal. She seems to have a direct line to executive approval." The room fell quiet. Heads turned. Some snickered, others winced. Jonathan looked up slowly. His gaze locked on the speaker, and when he spoke, his voice was cool, clear, and loud enough for every corner of the room. "Clara Jensen is one of the most committed, capable team members we've brought on this year. If anyone doubts her qualifications, I suggest they review her work or try to match it." Silence. He let the weight of the moment settle. Langston Enterprises was built by people who believe in merit, not politics. If you're more interested in gossip than results, you're in the wrong room. No one said a word. Clara heard about it within the hour. By lunchtime, the whispers had changed their tone. Respect, even admiration, had returned to some eyes. But it didn't erase the ache that had taken root in her chest. She found herself walking toward the rooftop terrace, a space she rarely used, seeking air that didn't taste like tension. Minutes later, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned and found Jonathan there, hands in his pockets, brow creased. "I'm sorry you had to deal with any of that," he said quietly. "It shouldn't have happened." She gave a tight smile. "It's not your fault. People believe what they want." He studied her a moment. "Are you thinking about leaving?" She hesitated. The thought had been circling all week. "I don't want to be the reason people question your leadership," she admitted. "You've worked your whole life to build this. I'm just a waitress who sent a message to the wrong man." Jonathan stepped closer. "You're not a mistake, Clara. You're a reminder to everyone here that talent and resilience don't come with a pedigree. You've earned your place. Don't let small minds make you forget that." Her eyes stung, but she didn't let the tears fall. "Not this time." "I don't know how to fix this," she said. You already have, he replied. By showing up, by working hard, by being who you are. The rest will fade, or be silenced. She nodded slowly, letting the words sink in. Below them, the city pulsed with life. The noise, the rush, the relentless beat of ambition. Up here, the air felt still. I'm not leaving, Clara said at last. I'm not giving them the satisfaction. Jonathan smiled. Good. Because Langston is better with you in it. For the first time that week, she believed it. The storm hadn't passed, but the ground beneath her felt solid again. Strong enough to keep going. Strong enough to silence the doubt. The ballroom buzzed with anticipation. Langston Enterprises' annual Impact Gala had drawn its usual crowd of power suits, reporters, and industry influencers. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above immaculate tables, and the clink of cutlery echoed softly under the gentle hum of orchestral background music. Tonight was meant to celebrate achievement, milestones, partnerships, growth. But this year, the spotlight was destined for something else entirely. Jonathan Langston stood behind the podium at center stage, his signature calm presence commanding attention. He gave the usual updates, record profits, expanded outreach programs, new philanthropic commitments. Applause rippled politely. Then he paused, setting aside his prepared notes. There's one more story I want to share, he said, voice steady but with a hint of something personal beneath. It's not in your folders. It's not part of the agenda. But it's the story I think best captures who we are and who we strive to be. Whispers rose, heads tilted curiously. Clara Jensen, seated at a corner table near the stage, felt her breath catch. Lily sat beside her, drawing quietly with crayons on a napkin. Clara's heart pounded as Jonathan continued. Several months ago, he said, I received a message. It was not meant for me. It was a cry for help from a mother doing everything she could to care for her child. That message came from Clara Jensen. The room turned toward her. A slow, collective realization washed over the crowd. The rumors, the questions, the tension, they all resurfaced, only to be silenced in the next breath. Jonathan pressed on. Instead of deleting it, I read it. Instead of ignoring it, I responded. Clara joined our company shortly after. Not because of that message, but because of who she is. Because of the person behind it. He gestured toward her. Clara, would you join me? Clara stood, her legs barely supporting her. Applause started hesitantly, then grew as she walked up to the stage. Lily stayed behind, proudly watching her mother. Jonathan stepped aside. I believe she has something to say. Clara took the mic, her hands trembling but her eyes steady. The ballroom stilled. I never imagined I'd be here, she began. Not just at this event, but anywhere near a stage like this. A few months ago, I was working back-to-back shifts, hoping to make it to payday without having to water down my baby's formula. I sent a text to the wrong person, asking for help. She paused, scanning the room. Faces looked back, some curious, some stunned, some deeply moved. That mistake changed my life. She went on, sharing pieces of her journey, how the self-doubt, the learning curve, the kindness she received, and the walls she had to climb over. She didn't name the rumors or the judgment, but her voice carried through them anyway. I didn't come here with a polished resume or a list of connections. I came here with a child in my arms and hope in my hands. And Langston didn't just give me a desk, they gave me a chance. Her voice wavered, then steadied. To those who welcomed me, thank you. To those who doubted me, I understand. I might have, too. But I stand here tonight not because of a favor. I'm here because I worked, I grew, and I showed up every day ready to prove I belonged. Thunderous applause broke out, rising to its feet. Jonathan, standing nearby, clapped with quiet pride. When the ovation finally faded, Clara stepped down from the podium, her cheeks flushed, eyes glistening. Jonathan met her halfway. Proud of you, he said simply. Thank you, she replied, voice thick with emotion. For everything. They stood for a moment, a quiet bubble in a sea of celebration. No titles, no expectations, just mutual recognition. Later, as the evening wound down and guests milled about in small clusters, Clara returned to Lily's side. The little girl beamed. You talked like a superhero, she whispered. Clara laughed, scooping her into her arms. I was just telling the truth. Back across the room, Jonathan glanced their way. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, everything fell still again. A mistaken text. A misname. A moment of vulnerability that sparked something greater than either of them expected. It didn't just change Clara's life, it changed his. And now, under the chandelier's glow, amid polished shoes and swirling gowns, one simple truth remained. Sometimes the smallest message reaches the right person, and from it, an entirely new story begins. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications. Share this video. Thank you.